Hi, welcome to Jess Checks Out. I am Jess. I know it's so shocking. My name, me, together. Okay, so I have decided to do a couple of group videos because I've been reading things of the same thing or the same series, and to me, it just makes more sense to put them together than to talk about them individually in a very long video. That way, I can reference it up on the wrap ups, and you guys don't have to keep reading and hearing about things for like 3.5 hours. Okay, so this video is about the Widow's Island novella series, which is written by Melinda, Leigh, and Kendra Elliot. It is put out by Kindle Unlimited, or rather Montlake Romance, but you know, if you're on the Amazon Publishing, you're usually on their Kindle Romance or their Kindle Unlimited catalog, which is how I found it. It was perfect for my commute because it's like about 2.5 hours audiobook, which is what I was looking for because I love audiobooks. So that was cool. And I'm sorry I keep moving it because I keep trying to figure out how I want to do this. Okay. Because I want you to be able to see me but not be washed out, and I don't know if that's possible. I'm just too daggum white. Okay. I do not have nearly enough skin tone color to actually make this damn thing autocorrect. Okay, anyway, so like I said, it's put out by Montlake Romance, and it's set in the San Juan Islands of Washington State in the U.S., to clarify, because those that are not may not realize there are two very different regions with the same name. It's put in the romantic suspense selection, because romance, but honestly, I don't know, I'll get into that in a minute. And then it's kind of like, if you were to describe it, it's got a little bit of Cabot Cove with J.B. Fletcher in it, and about equal amounts of murder, honestly. Because so far this series has 6 books, and this video will cover all 6. And it's got a little bit of the practical magic in, it's not magic realism, but there's that feeling of, in this story they say either the island accepts you or the island repels you. And I can understand that because I lived in places where I was like, this is not the place for me, guys. If you would like to see my shirt of the day, I usually don't wear my favorite kind of t-shirts, but I've had this book forever, and I love my Doctor Who because I love Doctor Who. And I grew up with this, and I have a feeling that Peggy Lou Reed would probably like it. Anyway, it kind of just goes with the whole thing. So I read it over the course of like a week and a half to 2 weeks, thereabouts. Maybe don't binge this series, I'm just going to say that right now. And it's an audio and ebook form from Kindle Unlimited, as I mentioned. So let's start getting into the stories. I have like 5 pages of notes, guys. I mean, they're large print, so that may be a little bit of a misnomer. But anyway, first you have Close to the Bone, which I ended up giving 4 out of 5 stars. And I did that because I think that it was well worth it. So it's kind of the beginning of the series. It sets things up. It shows why like Kate Wilde is at home, and why her childhood best friend Tessa Black has returned home about 18 months ago, even though they moved off island and had different careers in law enforcement, and they both chose that field after their best friend was declared dead and missing, and nobody did anything about anything. And I thought it was very interesting, and Kate is from the former FBI, but she can no longer perform the job because she's basically afraid of shooting and being shot after her last partner was killed in an unexpected shootout when they went to go handle some things that were not so great. And sorry about the glare from my glasses, but one day I'll get contacts. This is not that day. Kate's supposed to be on sabbatical, but it turns out they've found someone that's dead on the island. And, she's distracted by the new doctor on the island, Henry, who is younger and kind of in her age group. And, it's a romance, so you can see where this is going. I felt like the romance was a little bit rushed. It had a little bit of a faded mates feel to it. Like it was that quick. And I feel like it was missing some of the build up to that. I wasn't entirely that big of a fan. But I do like the fact that Kate and Tessa work together to handle this. Even though there's been some fractures in their friendships recently, they are still best friends. They miss their best friend Sam, who was again kidnapped and is presumed dead, and they don't know what happened to her. And I say kidnapped because they don't believe she's dead, but they can't prove it. And so they've kind of accepted it because they were 14 and 15 at the time. Like, you don't have the ability to have those kind of conversations otherwise, right? I think maybe Lake Union would have been a better fit rather than Monte Lake Romance, because I think if you were to eliminate the romance, like the sudden romance, I think the series, again, the 6 books so far, the last 7 and 8 come out in October. I think if they had not rushed those, I think it would have been a much better one, because these are novellas. They're only like 90 pages. So if you give 10% of your book or 15% of your book to the romance, you're missing out on the suspense part. And I think the suspense part was probably the most important thing, honestly. There's like a death of a young woman, and there's all this, like, you know, bringing up subjects and the overlap, and that mystery was just kind of weird. It's actually one reason that it was only 4 out of 5 stars, because I'm generally pretty okay with giving novellas and short stories higher ratings, because I realize it's a tighter line, but just it didn't work. I don't know. I think if they just taken out the romance in this one, it would have been great. Then the next one is, no, sorry, the first one is Close to the Bone by Kendra Elliot. I get them confused because Kendra tends to write Kate, and Melinda Leigh tends to write Tessa. So, because it's like basically two points of views on all these. And from what I gathered, like, they released like 1 or 2 at a time. Like 2 at a time. So that way they each get a side of the story, or the next story. But anyway. So the second one is A Bone to Pick by Melinda Leigh. And I gave this one 4 stars as well. This one focuses on Tessa Black, and Tessa Black to me has got a much stronger case than Kate does, because Tessa Black is young, like in her 30s, like early 30s, like maybe around 34, 35, somewhere around there, and she's returned home because she had to. Her mother, unfortunately, has started to get dementia. I say get dementia, but it's super complicated, but, you know, someone I love very much, my godmother, died from dementia and Alzheimer's, so I'm very partial to those kind of stories, and I think this one does a really good job of conveying sundowning and the way you can be right in your presence one minute and then completely 30 years in the past and the next, and not knowing who or what is going on, and you don't know where that line comes down, what stresses are going to keep you as you are. In this one, Tessa has to handle being a deputy sheriff, or, you know, the main source within the island when it comes to power, because the sheriff is actually off island, because the island only has like 5,000 people. Hence the Cabot Cove kind of references, but, you know, it's got very little way of need of having like a full station. Like, it's got like a tiny little jail and all kinds of stuff. So she's there, she's doing that as a full-time job, and she's got to take care of her mom, because she has a younger, like, teenage sister who needs help as well. There's a lot in these stories, and I really love the fact that they openly talk about this information. Again, romance, not needed, and this time it's with Logan, Kate's brother, who is returning from, I want to say, Afghanistan, I think. He was a former military, and now he has gotten out because he cannot handle what's going on. But I did find it very interesting that Logan and Kate both have PTSD from things they couldn't help or do anything about, and I can definitely see why they work as a sibling pair. I will say that. But I think Leigh does such a fantastic job of interweaving, like, how do you help, how do you control someone's actions who can't fend for themselves when they're no longer in their mental space for that ability. You know, my godmother had something very similar. I caught her at one point, she was making breakfast, like cooking bacon and just holding a pan that was on fire. You know, we were lucky that the apartment didn't burn down. So I get it. Like, when she talks about, like, when her mom walks off and them needing to have something. If my godmom had, I think, dementia for longer than it was diagnosed. And I kept asking the doctors for help, and they did not give any, because, you know, when you get older, they don't want to give you that kind of care. And I will say the mystery on this one is what kind of gave it a bump up as well. It felt very Cabin Covey, Murder, She Wrote, as I mentioned before. The story is about a painter who is painting women, and you know, the husbands don't know and they don't understand what's going on. They just assume the husbands are kind of like, oh yay, I got something, and also when did you get this done, and how much money did it cost, or whatever. And there's a lot of layers to it, and I really appreciated that. And I kind of appreciated the very Cabot Covey of it all, and I think it really works for me as a book. And like I mentioned, I didn't really care about the romance because I just found the main one very interesting, because it starts out with the artist being harpooned to a sign. Yeah, exactly. And then my husband just got home and my dog is looking for him, and he is in the kitchen. And the third in this series was Whisper of Bones by Melinda Leigh, which again means it is a Tessa story. In this story, there is a case of someone being murdered, and it's kind of the only contractor on the island, but he's kind of a jerk, and he does a lot of things that are not so great. The idea is to find out who did what and how they did it. And you know, it turns out it's local contractor Jason McCoy, who has a long list of people that don't like him, so that makes Tessa's job difficult. Thankfully, in the last book, Kate's grandma Jane has put together the kind of widows, because there's a high number of widows on the island, put the widows and the advocacy group together, and they take turns rotating, so Tessa doesn't have to worry about her mom being out, because her mom went walking out in the last book. And Logan has put alarms on the door, but it's a matter of kind of keeping things as they should be. I really appreciated that, actually. I like it when, you know, this kind of things happen. And of course, in this case, the contractor shows up on a neighboring island, but it turns out it's someone at Widow's Island. So Tessa is in charge of keeping up with it. And, you know, events like arson and physical assault kind of help the thing unwind. And I did make it was not my favorite in the series. I gave it 3 stars. I think that it's good that Logan's PTSD was discussed more. It's a very important element to his character. And again, I think that stuff like that would have been better represented than the romance with Tessa. I feel like they moved a little bit too fast. They've done a little bit too much. It's only been like 2 or 3 weeks since the first book. For a murder mystery, you know, there's not a lot of content in those 96 pages. Honestly, it was kind of easy to somewhat guess who the killer was. It was kind of like one of the lower books of the 6 that I read. There's also a break in Samantha's case, which was nice. Again, Samantha being their friend who went missing. I just feel like, I don't know. But even Samantha's case, honestly, was just not that interesting to me at this point. I think it's because I did binge these so back to back, and it can be somewhat repetitious and formulaic. I don't know. The next couple are at least like a couple months later. So I think the first 4 of them like a month or so, and then after that it's like, you know, 6 months later. So it's kind of nice that happens, because Bred and the Bone is the next one, and that's by Kendra Elliot, which means it's another Kate story, because again, Kendra does Kate and Melinda does Tessa. I liked this one. I gave it 3 stars. So I definitely liked this mystery more because it had more of a answer to some of the questions that have been set up, but I also feel like it's early in the series for these answers to be set up. And I think that if they had waited and put this maybe on book 6, it would have made a little bit more sense, because I think that it's kind of like flying through. And like I said earlier, that I just forgot to finish my thought on, Amazon, I've noticed when they're publishing, they have a tendency to not demand as concise editing as I would prefer. I think that they sometimes let their writers get away with not fully developing a story and then just writing it, because when you read it, you can see the holes. And this is again one of those books. I gave it 3 stars, even though I like the mystery. The writing is just weak, and I think part of that is I don't really like Kate that much, Like, Kate has a pretty interesting story. I mean, her partner died on the job. She's on sabbatical, not sure what she wants to do. And then this happens, and the mystery is taken away from a lot of this. And it's kind of like just you're told, not shown. And I don't really like that, especially when you've got like two different plot lines going, even though they're interconnected. I didn't appreciate that. I feel like maybe the way this is set up is just kind of not my favorite. And I don't want to give too much away because it's an important book in this series, but I'm pretty sure you can guess somewhat some of the stuff that's been going on, right? Now, I definitely preferred the second half, which was with Samantha and what happened to her and what they find out, and as things kind of unfold and more of answers are given. But again, I feel like it was too early in the series for some of these answers. I really feel like maybe this is supposed to be a 4-part series, and it became in like 8-part or however many is left in the series. But I feel like things were answered too soon, and I'm not going to give too much away because I don't want to give it all away. Because Tessa and Kate are deeply entwined in their childhood and they're growing up on the island and the community within it. So I wanted to see more of that throughout these books. And like I said, if they had just cut the romance, and I mean, if you're going to have romance, it's fine. Like, make it so, they're flirting for 3 of their individual books before they say, let's go on a date. You know what I mean? Like build it up. It felt way too fast, way too easy, way too soon. And again, this is one of those books where you kind of have that feeling that things are just not really necessary in the long run. I really liked how sometimes you can't help an addict. And what I mean about that is not everything is going to end in a fairy tale. Sometimes addiction is not pretty. I've known people with addictions. My family has a history of addiction, and so I have to be very careful in not doing that. My food is addiction, or my addiction is food rather, but it's something I can handle somewhat. I'm slowly finding my way. Like I said before, I'm pretty happy being fat. That's not a problem. I'm just content in how I'm handling it. Like handling the medical side that comes with all the stuff that wasn't getting done the when I asked them to. So that side is different than my fatness. Don't care. I've got April from Spoiler Alert going on of being confident in who I am. Either you like me or you don't. I don't really care. But in this case, it was really nice to see how there becomes a time when you have to accept certain facts and how certain things change, and I really appreciated that a lot. And I felt like it was more consistent, at least, than the last book. It felt more like it went with the first and second book, and the third book just kind of felt weirdly there. Again, 3 stars. The timelines are rough. And then you have Below the Bones by Kendra Elliot. Again, this one dives back into Kate's background of working in the FBI and dealing with a serial killer and how he chose his victims, what he did, just like on the ritualistic killings on, Widow's Island, and discovering what's going on there. I really wasn't into this one. Again, 3 stars, not what I was expecting. This one was an audiobook read as well. Like, some of these have been ebook reads, but this one was an audiobook, and listening at 2 times the speed, it was over about a little over an hour, I think. Maybe an hour and a half. And I just... So she has to put everything on the line to discover who the killer is, and she has to decide what she really wants out of life. And she kind of makes that decision at some point. And when she does, she discovers what she wants. But really, you kind of knew the outcome. Because at some point, within like the last book, the 4th book and the 5th book, Kate has given notice that she no longer wants to be in the FBI, but this has kind of dragged her back. What's going on? It's kind of an obvious answer, honestly, and just... like she could feel the island calling her back, and I appreciate that actually. I like it when the settings have some kind of thing going on, but I don't know. It wasn't my jam. The story felt convoluted, too difficult, victimizing. It didn't really work for me, and so I think that if I was going to give any book, probably one of the lower ratings, this one would be it as well. Like I said, the first two books started out really strong. I was so hoping the rest of the series was going to continue that. But by the fifth book, I kind of expected it to be like this. And again, maybe this is because I binged it all so quickly. But for a novella series, you have to be able to write tightly to make sure everything is, answered. And I feel like a lot of these books leave a lot of answers along the way, especially like the killer and the reasonings and all of this stuff was just, it didn't really work. Again, this is one of those like tell don't shows. Like, I don't need to see the romance. You can tell me about the romance, but I need to see the resolution of the suspense because it is a suspense genre. It's romance suspense, and so you need the romance, but the romance in that time frame, you don't need it. Not if you're gonna like repeat the same thing in every book. Again, this is not a 200-page shorter book. This is a novella, which you have to be very concise with. And then the final book is A Broken Bone, and this is my least favorite of the series. I gave it 2 stars. Part of this is because of how the lead up and the mystery and it felt really, really weak. Like it was thrown together. And again, this one involves Tessa. I like Tessa. I prefer Tessa over the two of them. It was nice to have information about them, about what Tessa had been up to, because at this point it had been about 6 months since the beginning of the book. The series started, so that was really nice. But there's a lot of like romance that is just the. I don't necessarily, it doesn't really have anything that shows the lead up. You're not rooting for them, you're just told to root for them, and I don't like that as a reader. That really bothers me, to be honest. So, this one involves when a foster child is killed and found in an abandoned house. What happened? Who did it? What was the answer? And it was like the most unsatisfying. If I didn't like the 5th book, I loathed the 6th book, because I felt like it was such a bad example of what was going on, and I felt like it was, I hate to say it, but lazy writing, like write by letters or write by numbers, or write by color, whatever you want to call it. Like it felt very formulaic, and the series gets more and more formulaic as it goes, but it really shows up in this one because there is no way to get from A to B without something in the middle. It's more like A to F with B, C, and E just ignored. I don't know. I'm going to read the last 2 in the series when it comes out in October if I still have Kindle Unlimited, but it's not a series I'm looking forward to like I was hoping I would. And overall, I think if you want a quick read, these are perfect for that, especially if you have like a 2.5, 3-hour commute round trip. You can listen to it as you go or whatever. Perfect. These books fly by, and when my Kindle app went wonky, as it did, all Kindle apps go wonky on my phone, I went ahead and got the Audible, which, anytime you have Kindle Unlimited, you can listen to the Audible books, or you can listen to the unlimited books on the Audible app. So I downloaded those. There was some issues with syncing on that, but it's such a short novella. I think it was only like 80 pages, 90 pages. It was a pretty short novella. So it wasn't that big of a deal to go back and forth like that. I'm kind of hoping for the best. I really think these books should have been like books and not novellas, or if not books, then like 150 to 200 pages. Because if you're going to build the suspense, build everything up, you have to have the time to do that. And I've noticed both the authors write a lot of these novella series in this genre. Because I've read a few. I actually read one, and I'll be talking about it in my July wrap-up at some point. I read Kendra Elliott's Unveiled, which is another series of hers. And I've noticed that like there's a bit of a quick fix, and I don't know about that. I think it needs to have a little bit more to it. And like I said, the framework is just not proportionate. But like I said, if you want something quick and easy, these are perfect. Like, doing housework and you like cleaning the kitchen, listen to the series. I was doing my commute, and then my school has been out for summer break. Over here, we get like 2 weeks of summer break, so I had summer break, so I was listening to them when I was like cooking dinner or cleaning up or doing stuff around the house. That's basically what it's for. It's not made to be deeply invested in. It's not like some of the series out there. I think overall with this series so far, I'd probably give it maybe 3 stars because it's such a wide discrepancy in the writing and the storytelling that it's middle of the road. So we'll see how that goes. This is not the only collection I will be talking about, however, in the next couple months. So I read the Forward series, which is also on Kindle Unlimited, and that one is a speculative sci-fi, which I will be talking about. It has 6 stories as well. Like I said, for these, I'm trying to like group them so that way you guys don't have like a huge at the end of the month, because a lot of these are very short. Like none of these books were over 100 pages in The Widow's Island. And I don't know how long the next ones are going to be, but they're probably going to be well under 100. I just don't want to waste my time on these and the wrap-ups when I can talk about some, be talking about them individually in a grouping. I also have another grouping of bigamy coming up, and it's because I read 2 nonfictions on that as well as a fiction, and I want to talk about them because they kind of all interconnect in some way. So I've also got a couple more series I need to discuss. I'm trying to make these easier as well as some tags. So I'm trying to give you guys a little bit a mix up of content. All right, that's all from this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Please let me know what your favorite suspense, thriller, crime, whatever you want to call that genre from Kindle Unlimited is below if you have that. If you don't, please let me know because maybe I can find it some way else. Sometimes you can find deals on Chirp Books, which God bless because I love Chirp Books. It's owned by BookBub. And oftentimes you can find audiobooks for like $1.99, $2.99. I've gotten a few romances and stuff for like $1.99. I didn't always love them, but it was easier to invest that than the 30 bucks on it or to go through Audible because Audible is quite expensive as well. So if you want to leave me any information like that below, I would appreciate it. Or you can always just put, I don't know, your favorite instrument that has been used as a tool in your favorite crime novel or show. Doesn't have to be the, like, well, I should say the emoji. Let's put the emojis in there. So let's put that in the comments and then name where it came from because I don't know. For all I know, it could be a pineapple, and I really don't know any pineapple ones. All right, guys. See you next time. Bye.